There's a trauma response that I didn't even know I had for most of my life. Not because it was hidden, but because it felt like my personality. It felt like kindness, like being easygoing, like being thoughtful, like being the kind of person who could get along with just about anyone. And for a long time, I was really proud of that until I started asking myself a difficult question. Why is it so hard for me to disappoint people? Why do I automatically say yes when I want to say no? Why do I scan someone's face the moment I say something, looking for signs that I've upset them? Why does someone else's discomfort immediately become my responsibility? I thought I was just empathetic, but I was beginning to realize I wasn't just feeling other people's emotions. I was organizing my life around them. And that's when I learned about fawning. If you've heard of the fight, flight, or freeze responses, fawning is often considered another survival response. It's the instinct to stay safe by becoming agreeable, helpful, easy, pleasant, to smooth things over before conflict even has a chance to happen. For some people, that response develops in environments where love feels conditional, where emotional safety depends on reading the room, on anticipating someone else's needs, on knowing when they're about to become angry before they do. Growing up, I learned that keeping the peace often felt safer than telling the truth. If someone else was upset, my nervous system reacted as though something dangerous was happening. So I became incredibly good at adapting. I knew how to become whoever the situation needed me to be. And when you're rewarded for that, it doesn't feel like survival anymore. It feels like a maturity almost. People tell you you're thoughtful, selfless, easy to be around. And those things can all be genuinely true. But underneath them, there can also be fear. One of the hardest parts about fawning is that it disconnects you from yourself. Because if you're constantly asking, what does everyone else need? There isn't much room left to ask, what do I need? I don't think I realized how automatic it had become until really recently, honestly. I'd leave conversations wondering why I agreed to things I didn't want to do. I'd replay interactions in my head, trying to figure out if someone was upset with me. I'd apologize before I even knew whether I'd done something wrong. And I noticed something else. I was incredibly uncomfortable when people were disappointed. Not angry, just disappointed. It felt unbearable, as though their emotion meant I had failed. But over time, I started learning something that changed everything. My nervous system was responding to the present, as though it were the past. The danger had changed. My body hadn't realized it yet, but I wasn't that child anymore. I wasn't trapped anymore. I wasn't dependent on someone else's emotional state for my own survival. Like my husband, he is so he really does not need me to fawn over him. And at the same time, it was a learned, coping mechanism. And so like every relationship this affected. Despite knowing that I wasn't dependent on someone else's emotional state for my survival, my nervous system hadn't gotten the memo. And I think that's what healing often is. It's not convincing yourself that you were never hurt. It's not pretending that the past didn't shape you, but it's slowly teaching your body that today is different, that disagreement is not abandonment, and that someone else's disappointment is not an emergency. that saying no doesn't make you unsafe. So for me, this has looked surprisingly ordinary. Pausing before I answer, asking myself, if I knew they wouldn't be upset, what would I actually want? And letting silence exist instead of rushing to fix it. It's allowing people to have feelings without immediately taking ownership of them. And that's been one of the hardest lessons, because empathy is beautiful, but responsibility has limits. I can care about your emotions without becoming responsible for regulating them. Now, for my daughter's another story. I am responsible for helping her regulate her emotions. But you know what I mean. So I can love you without abandoning myself. I can be kind without disappearing. And honestly, I am still learning this lesson. There are days when I notice myself slipping back into old patterns. I hear myself over-explaining or over-apologizing, trying to make sure everyone else is comfortable. And instead of judging myself, I try to smile a little, because I know where that part of me came from. She was trying to keep me safe, and she deserves compassion, not shame. But she also doesn't have to drive anymore. The world she learned to survive in isn't the world I'm living in today. And maybe that's what healing feels like. Not becoming a completely different person, not losing your kindness, not becoming harder, but becoming free enough to let your kindness become a choice instead of a survival strategy. Because there is a profound difference between being loved for who you are and being loved for how well you disappear. And I think for the first time in my life, I'm finally learning the difference. And if fawning is a defense mechanism that you have too, I hope that you can learn that difference as well.